A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Welcome to segment number 3 of Famous Moments in Oscar History. I'm Patrick McDonald of HollywoodChicago.com.
And I'm Jeffrey Leibham, one of the foremost Oscar historians in Chicago.
Very good, Jeffrey. And we're going to talk about Oscar history right now in this third segment.
Yes, we are.
The hosts. And the reason we're talking about the hosts is because this year Oscar goes a little different and decides to have co-hosts this year.
Correct.
Alec Baldwin and Steve Martin. So to successfully toast them, we're going to talk about the history of hosts in Oscars. And let's talk about the first host. Who was that?
Douglas Fairbanks actually was the very first host of the Oscar ceremony.
Very good. Okay. And we're going to talk about first. So the first celebrity presenter.
Believe it or not, the first celebrity presenter was not until 1934.
Okay.
Interesting choice. It was Shirley Temple.
Shirley Temple.
Was brought on stage to actually present only the Best Actress Oscar that year, which Claudette Colbert won for It Happened One Night.
Well, very good. And as we mentioned before, it was just the host that would usually read the names in those pre-radio days.
Correct.
And we have a picture right here of old ski-nosed Bob Hope. He was the one that hosted the Oscars the most time. What was the first time he hosted?
The first year he hosted the Oscars was 1939, the year that Gone with the Wind won Best Picture.
What was his joke? Welcome to David Selznick's charity night.
There you go.
I'm saying.
There you go, Bob.
I screwed it up. Because the co-hosts of the Oscars of this year, we're going to go to the first year there were co-hosts.
And the very first year there were co-hosts on the Academy Awards was 1944.
1944.
The co-hosts for that particular ceremony were Bob Hope, but he was also joined by John Cromwell, a film director who Selznick loved, by the way, which is probably why he got chosen. He was the director of Since You Went Away, which was Selznick's big picture that year.
So let's go to the first year that there was a woman hosting. What year was that?
The first year there was actually a woman host was 1947.
Okay.
She was not the solo hostess. She was a co-host, as we have this year. It was Dick Powell and Agnes Moorehead.
Agnes Moorehead, Endura.
Correct.
Was Endura from Bewitched.
An old Orson Welles Mercury Theater alum.
So we're going to jump ahead now to an experiment that Oscar did, and it has to do with another first.
Correct, and it was the first transcontinental broadcast of the Academy Awards. Some of you may recall, some of our older viewers may recall that in 1952 was the year that this actually happened.
They would have to be very old.
Right. Well, not that old. But anyhow, if you happened to be watching in 1952, you may remember that some of the awards were handed out in Los Angeles, and some by Bob Hope, and some of the awards were actually handed out in New York City.
So 1952 was the year that the Oscars were having some budgetary problems, and RCA, who owned NBC, approached the Oscars and said, we would like to buy the broadcast rights. So the Oscars were broadcast for the first time. And because of that, they insisted on a transcontinental hookup, which had a Oscar ceremony in New York and Los Angeles going on simultaneously so that all the actors could be covered.
Correct.
So there was a tenuous relationship between television and film still, including MGM head Dory Sherry. And what did he do?
He actually forbade his performers to appear on television. He was not happy, let me say, with his performers appearing on television because he felt that, as you said, television was the enemy. However, he did realize that one of his stars had appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. Box office receipts started going through the roof, so he's actually smart enough to realize that television could be a tool to actually increase the gross at the box office, as well as promoting a star.
Which really was the first white flag between television and movies, and they coexist to this day.
Correct.
Each helping each other. Okay, well that's it for our 3 segments, famous moments in Oscar history. Jeffrey, happy Oscar week.
Happy Oscar to you too, Pat.
And happy Oscar week to everybody watching.
All of you.
Cheers.
Hooray for Hollywood.
Woo!